So everyone, this is Alva, the Ice Queen of Arctis, the band from Finland. If you want to listen to some Northern Magic blend of rock and pop and metal, then listen to our debut album that is coming out 1st of November. Check it out and get some of that Finnish Northern vibe, melancholia vibe into you.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing today? It's John the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the dojo. You know it's the John the Ninja Studios, and we are repping a man that all I can say is he's considered the leader of this band. But him and this group of individuals have really gone through the ringer to present some of the finest music we've heard in a while. So first things first, if you know anything about Finland, you know that they can rock. And these guys are no stranger to walking out off the western coast of Finland. This man joined his first bandmate, Mika, who happens to be their drummer and technically their secretary. Not too sure how that worked out. When they were in school back in the day, in 2004, all you should have been listening to was hip-hop. But this man was hiding the fact that he was listening to Rammstein. He was introduced, again, Mika coming through strong, to Slayer. And he had this love of listening to music performed by Zakk Wylde and Dimebag Dale. It inspired him to pick up the guitar himself and create this amalgamation that I speak of. The man I have here is Bjorn Johansson, and the band I speak of, they formed in 2018 from the ashes of another band. After making an album, they said, you know what, this is so radically different. We have to change the style up and become something totally new. And new and strong it is. This band incorporates a deep lore into their presentation, taking inspirations from the dramatic Finnish weather cycles and as well as sci-fi techno. We're going to talk about your love for the nerd stuff, good sir. But the band creates a multi-dimensional sound which goes from pop and metal to rock to symphonic. It's all over the place, but it's a onslaught of musical genius. Here to talk about the band's self-titled debut and their tour with Apocalyptica coming and starting November 11th. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Bjorn Johansson of Arctis. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm A-okay. Now, again, we got to get back to it. I've heard in interviews, you're a nerd, self-proclaimed. You love Star Wars. You love Lord of the Rings, but I did not hear you say Star Trek. Good sir, are you a Trekkie or are you away from that?
I'm not really a Trekkie in that sense. I'm guess I'm too young for that, because lots of my colleagues love Star Trek, but unfortunately not me.
So tell me a little bit more about your love for Star Wars, because I need to know if you're a purist. Do you only like the original trilogy? Are you okay with the last trilogy that dropped a couple of years ago? I know there's a lot of, it's kind of like Metallica. You love it so much when there's a change, it kind of ruffles the feathers.
I would have been okay with Disney trilogy, etc. But I think that the movies are, like in that sense, they're like a copy of the original trilogy. In that sense, I would like to see something new in that sense. But yeah, I listen to the audiobooks also of Star Wars when I clean the house or mow my lawn. I can do that, and I really enjoyed the Darth Plagueis story. About the guy who was behind Darth Sidious, and do shit. So yeah, my love for Star Wars started at 1999 with the episode 1, The Phantom Menace. That was the first Star Wars movie I ever saw because I borrowed it from some friends of mine, and then I saw that. Yeah, and then after that I saw the original trilogy.
Coming through, Mademoiselle.
No, I'm here.
You got in at the perfect time. We were talking about Star Wars and nerds and science. It's really great. I don't know if that's your bag, but we're going to get you indoctrinated real soon.
Well, you could have that one. Well, I like Star Wars, but I'm not that nerdy about it like Björn.
That hurt my heart a little bit. I feel for you.
Sorry.
Bjorn, so again, you were listening to a lot of hard rock metal when back in the day hip-hop was the forefront in the world's scope as far as music. I was curious, what was the first moment you heard Rammstein or Pantera? What was that, timing? Because like for me, AC/DC, video games, that's how I heard them, and that's how I went down the rabbit hole. So I was just curious of how you fell into that.
You see, in Finland, we always have had like a harder music culture that's been very, prevalent, even in radio. And I heard Rammstein with the song Sonne, on the radio, the Finnish state-owned radio. I heard it there, and I heard Within Temptation, Angels, and
Yeah.
these kinds of songs were really big on the radio in the early 2000s, and you had Evanescence with Going Under, etc., and Bring Me to Life. So you were kind of easily exposed to this, but you didn't really think of it as metal in that sense. But it was, you thought it's a rock band. But yeah, that was the first time I came in contact with that. But I was a bit older when Mika introduced me to Slayer, and you really felt, that seed of rebellion from Slayer with the song Disciple from the album God Hates Us All.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I do have a little fun with that song. I go to church all the time. It's like, oh, you gotta hear Disciple. You're gonna love it. But Alva, as well as you, Mademoiselle, because you've always had this inclining to sing. What was the real catalyst for you to dive into it? Was it kind of forced upon you to jump into singing, or did you really have to push mom and dad to go about your way and be like, hey, I really want to sing. Could you get me lessons?
No, before I could talk, I was singing a song when I was like 1 year old. So, and there my words actually started coming. So it was like, well, she's a singer then. That's she's already expressing with music. So yeah, I just grew up with it. My dad is a musician too, classical guitar. So yeah, it was just something I was a singer. It's always been there, and I listened to a lot of different kinds of music. Growing up with progressive rock like Pink Floyd and Genesis and stuff like that, and classical music. But I would say when I was a teenager, yeah, all these songs that Björn said, they started coming on the radio, and I was always a bit like in my own world, a bit melancholic creature, and these harder songs kind of, yeah, they hit me in the heart a bit. But my metal journey really started with when I was like 14, 15. I went to my first festival, and I happened to be almost in the front row at Rammstein headlining a big festival in Finland, and I got like all this pyrotechnic fire in my face, and I was like, God damn it, what's happening here? So then it was like that really hit me, and after that I was just lawning our garden and listening to Rammstein in my headphones. So yeah, that was the start.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. I gotta go back, Bjorn. I love the fact that you got the Slipknot hat on, man, because you always wear it in interviews. But one time, it wasn't even an interview. It was you doing socials for the band, and you also had a Typo Negative shirt on.
Oh yeah.
And I've had Johnny Kelly on. He's lovely. And every time I talk to somebody that's had interactions with that band, they're just like, they're the nicest guys. They're so great. Having been in a band with this whole team that you have, this whole squad, has there been anybody that you looked up to that has kind of already given you your props of like, hey man, you did really good. You're doing, as a band, you guys are doing something different, you know? Because I feel like they were masters at doing that, making people feel good and helping out.
Not really yet, because we're such a young band, and so in the beginning already. But there are like inside the Finnish metal industry, I would say there are a few head nods, every here and there, like pretty good, But I think there's so much buzz today, and a big noise floor. So in that sense, I think we still have to wait a bit until our heroes acknowledge us in that sense. But
Yeah.
that's not the sole purpose why we do this. This is this is a passion, not a acceptance tour.
Indeed,
But
indeed.
I definitely wait for the day when I can meet Deftones. I would die.
Yeah, you know what? I tell you, this industry is so connected. Like once you're in, which you guys are, it's going to be a lot easier to get a hold of people or at least meet them by chance. I think that's what I've learned. Chance meetings happen way more than actually going out of your way to ask for permission. But you guys all, even as a band, you guys are still working. You guys still have your daytime jobs. And good sir Bjorn, I don't know if you know this. There's a gentleman in New York, or at least it says on LinkedIn, that if you didn't have your beard and goatee, you guys look almost alike, but he does digital work. And I was like, you know what? I got to ask him what he does, because if there's a slight chance you guys are the same person, It's just there's no connection back to Finland. So I was wondering what do you do in your everyday? And the same goes for you as well, Mademoiselle.
I'm actually a stand-in at a school with special needs children. I am both being a special teacher and also like an assistant. So that's what I do on during the daytime. When I get back from the job, I jump in here, in interviews and or practicing, rehearsing the stuff. So that's what I do.
Yeah, we kind of both slipped into that field of children. I'm also like in kindergarten, but it was just because they needed people that can jump in because other teachers are sick and so on. And then we just stayed there. Yeah, they always have need for us. So that's our day job, being with kids all day. And then we are in interviews, and then we do rehearsals and social media and everything, and then we go to sleep.
And then wake up and do it all over again. But
Yeah.
I have to stress how incredibly not just kind-hearted, but how tolling that can be working with kids. Especially, I have a couple of friends that do special needs with kids. I have other friends that deal with kids that are in remedial school. They're a little bit more out of touch with reality, and they gotta try and pull them back. So the fact that you both do that, and then do your music afterwards, that can be incredibly tolling spiritually as it is physically exhausting. Something about the spirit being drawn. I have to ask, why is Finland so immersed in, I don't want to say negative, but there is this darker feeling. And I've heard they say it's the weather and how it changes and it can affect your mood. But it's like, for some reason, I always get like a negative times a negative equals a positive.
It's a hard land in that sense that you have to really fight nature, to exist, because you have really hot summers nowadays, but you have also very cold winters, and it's very harsh up here, so you have that. But then again, historically wise, if you look at Finland has been under Russian rule in the early 1900s, and Finland has fought 2 wars with Russia, and they have also been under Swedish rule for a couple of 100 years prior to the Russian rule. So the Finnish people has always been in some way or other, oppressed or had to fight for their right to exist. So I would say that will shape a people's like cultural identity and how positive and negative they are. But it also will create a very hard and honest people, in that sense, that are quite straightforward, but still have a good sarcastic humor, and we still embrace that in our music as well, because I think there is sarcasm in Finnish metal, not in the sense that it's making a joke of itself, but it's like, it's pretty bad, but it can always be worse. That's like the Finnish mentality.
Yeah, and we're not super expressive and outgoing. We're pretty quiet people, but it's like Finns don't care about extra stuff. You don't have to be extra. You just exist and do your thing. It's like, yeah, that's probably a bit from all this, that we fought for our way to exist, and it was like, well, fuck you everyone, and we're gonna do our thing.
Yeah.
But definitely, like, there's so much gray. It's like 50 shades of gray most of the year. So you're definitely fighting against the weather and yeah, everything.
Yeah, and a little side note about us: we're actually a little small minority in Finland. We're Fenno-Swedes. We have Swedish as our mother tongue, but we are not Swedes. We are a mixture between the Finns and Swedes.
So we are a bit happier than the Finns. Now we got it from Sweden, like a bit, a lot of the culture and more, maybe a bit more jolliness, if you say so. So yeah, we're in between, and we're not many, but at least this band are Finno-Swedes.
Have you guys experienced any scrutiny because of that? I know over here in the States, there can still be this idea of ethnicity being either a problem or a plus, or there can be times where, because that we've had so many issues with ethnicity in the past, where if you're mixed, that can actually ruffle. I keep on saying ruffle the feathers. There's going to be a quote in here somewhere for that. But there's this idea of like, oh, even though you're part of us, you're not 100% with us, so it's a little different.
Very seldomly, because I think during my whole life, I think I've only met 2 times or 3 times that, because it exists, but it's very uncommon. Because if you have a good attitude, yourself, and you don't make a fuss about it, you don't then get into trouble. But if you act like you're privileged, which is like one of the big it's like what's it? It's Alva Fördom, prejudice. Yeah. Prejudice about fellow Swedes are that we are super rich and that we are snobbish. But I'm actually sewing my own underwear in my kitchen, so I'm not rich. So it doesn't really. It's not a true prejudice in that sense.
Yeah, well, it definitely exists, this, that we're not exactly part of yeah, not all Finns love us, if we say so. But then again, we live in a part of Finland where there are mostly Finno-Swedes living. So we have like our own pieces of Finland where we can just live in peace, and it's all good. But yeah, but no, it has not been problem for us, but sometimes it can be small things happening in Finland. Someone is a bit yeah, talking Swedish, but it's nah.
Luckily, the metal community is not like that, so they're always very positive when we are around.
Yeah, something about I always see it the most at thrash shows too, because it's a little bit easier to get everyone together. But something about it just brings you this oneness. It's Charlie Badante said it was like church, so I always appreciated that at music, because you get a dude and their shirt says something, you're like, I strongly disagree, and then you vice versa, and there's this commodity where you can just leave it at the door. I still think that's the beauty in music. But Mademoiselle, we got to talk about you joining the band, because you guys all started early. We're talking, I think Miki came in at 2011, Mutz was like 2013. They had like 16 different singers. They were just rotating and rotating and rotating before you showed up, and then finally, boom, we have our singer. And it's so important to have that voice. What was your first interaction with the band, and when did you know, like, yeah, we have it? Because it's agreed, the whole band has this energy where you guys just come together.
I met these guys in music school, so we were definitely friends, and weirdos attract each other, so we liked each other. And they had another singer in that band they had before, but suddenly I kind of went away because I was 20 and pregnant. So I got my son then, and I disappeared a bit. But they still liked me and so on. And then they started having problem with the current singer, and they were like, what do we do now? And then in the middle of my 21 years old, alone with a kid, I was a bit lost actually, and I was like, what am I gonna do with my life now? And then this was not part of the plan. And then they reached out and was like, we need you. And that feeling was so amazing, because I was like, I'm gonna have a purpose in music again. It's gonna be metal. Wow! It was my first metal band, and first time trying to sing something like that. So I was super happy, and then it was just straight on into the studio. I had to learn the songs in like 1 week or so, and straight to it. And it was hard because I kind of had to change my voice a bit, and I was singing something that was made for another singer, and I didn't like the phrasing and like the melodies exactly wasn't for me, but I still did it. And after that, it's just been a journey of, yeah, we've been growing together and realizing that we all wanted the same thing, that we really want to do this. And I kind of didn't even think about that before I joined the band, but being in this group of amazing weirdo people, it was like, well, hell yeah, I want this too. Yes, let's do it. And yeah, one heart, and we just went for it.
You forgot, Alva, that before the studio, you actually went by the emergency room and sewed your head a couple of stitches.
Yeah, it was like they decided, okay, now we're gonna have Alva, and then we had like school was off for summer, and there was an accident, and someone that was a bit have been drinking too much, and he was like hugging me, and then he smashed me into the floor, and I got a big hole in my head, and I was bleeding lots and lots, and Björn and Mika was like, well, what the actual fuck, we finally got a new singer, and now this is happening, and she's gonna die already. Like, so he had Björn had Mika to like go with bike a few kilometers to go and check on me in the hospital, that make sure that we have a singer, make sure that we have a singer. And they had a singer. Eventually, I didn't die, so.
But I can understand the sentiment. I'd be like, this is my friend, and I also just lost my asset. It's like a double whammy. 2 in 1. It's terrible, you know. But I'm made out. That how much more metal can it get now? Now you got a scar. You're part of the community of, like, you know, mosh pit's got nothing on you at this point.
No. We had a brutal start and brutal years.
Well, bad start always has a great ending. Bjorn, you know, you have been recognized as the leader. You know, this is not just a band where it's you say it all, kind of like Steve Harris. Like, you really thrive on the input of everybody else. And something about this album, we're going to get to the whole thing, but something I found fascinating is that when you guys are writing the songs for this self-titled debut, you said everybody got to input. Everybody put in. It wasn't just all on you. Did you like that because it was more of a representation of the band? It's like, no, everybody has their input. This is us as a group, a unit. Or was it a little bit more of like, okay, now the pressure of writing is no longer just solely on me?
First and foremost, I'm not the real absolute leader here. I was that in the earlier band, but this is like a very big joint effort, the whole Arctis effort in that sense. So it's also reflected in the songwriting that everyone is part of it. And but yeah, as you mentioned, it became very apparent when we started with Arctis that this is not going to cut it if there's just going to be one guy doing it, because it's so much work, and every now and then someone crashes, and then you have to know that you have someone to take up the torch, in that sense, pick up the flag where it left off and move forward. And then that person crashes, and then the guy who crashed prior to that runs, you know, and picks up the flag. So that's how we see the system. And yes, I think it's actually for the better of the music, because everyone brings their own little, you know, set of spices to the, you know, whole creative process. Michael has a very much of American modern metal, you know, in him. He has very much influence from Sleep Token, etc. And then we have Mika and me, who are a bit more old school in that sense, who have, you know, metal from 2000s back in our heads, but still very modern metal, also what we listen to. And Alva, with her background in prog music, you know, she thinks a bit differently, but it's only to her strength, I think.
I wouldn't say the prog is the thing. I just have a lot of different genres behind me, so I make interesting melodies sometimes. It's not always like, oh, this is a metal melody or something like that. But yeah, well, the old band was like Björn's baby, and we were like, oh, he's making the music, we're joining in and playing it. But then also with Arctis, it was more work. But eventually, everyone also wanted to like make songs, because this was something else. This was something new. It was everyone's baby now suddenly, and so everyone started to make the music, and today everyone does something in every song, and that's very beautiful, because we get a lot of stuff into all the songs, like different opinions and a different taste and things. It just perfects everything. And well, this first album was the start, and we've really grown since that. And even the demos now for album 2 is changing a bit, and you can realize that wow, they are like actually growing. So yeah, it was not exactly happening that on the first album, but now we're definitely everyone writing.
What was the first band's name? And what was that moment where you really went all in on changing and saying, you know what, this is completely different?
Well, the band we had prior to this was called NIGHIO. You spell it NIGHON. And it was a band basically that was an anti-war band, which really had the shock value. We dressed up in uniforms, we painted our faces, and we had a lot of like very horrific stories from war. There was nothing that glorified war. It was very important for me that this was very dirty, brutal, and honest. This was not waving flags. This was more about the nature of the whole thing.
Nothing patriotic.
Nothing patriotic whatsoever. Nothing idealistic. It was only showing the ugly face of reality in that sense. And songs were about, we had the last album we made with that was about the First World War, which was mixed with stories from what happened in Europe then and that kind of stuff. And to be honest, at the time when we were starting with the third album, it felt like we didn't, that kind of music and that message wasn't really needed anymore in the world, because when we started with that, our old band, there was peace in Europe in that sense, and it was people thought that, you know, wars can never happen again. But I'm a big scholar of history myself, so I was quite keen to tell them that, you know, there's no such thing as a permanent peace. You should not be naive in that sense, and absolutely don't be blind about your surroundings. But I'm very much at peace, you know, in that sense, to lay that to rest, because we don't need that. People are much aware now that we have to really safeguard peace in that sense when we finally get peace again in Europe. So that's why we felt like, hey, let's move on with Arctis instead and build this band from scratch. You know, the music was different, you know, already from the first song we wrote for the third album with the producer Jimmy Westerlund. And it felt like, hey, let's make something from scratch so everyone's part of it from the start and we are all on equal terms. And that's why I'm not the supreme leader of the band, because we are all co-founders.
And maybe, Björn, we were just tired of your war songs. Oh, but that band was like more symphonic, industrial, darker stuff, a bit more even soundtrack vibe. So no hits. Yeah, more story based.
Can I ask you both, before we segue into the band getting its name and everything? You guys mentioned that band style, and Bjorn, I know you love the Gladiator soundtrack, and how dynamically different that is compared to the music we love playing and performing. And I always think of Interstellar. I don't know if you guys have been able to see that movie, but
absolutely, I love it.
Wonderful soundtrack, but it's so good at using this every aspect of music. You got those one notes that can just go on forever. You have the build-ups. You have the very calming. So, Bjorn, for you, I wanted to know what about the Gladiator soundtrack makes you love it so much. And Alva, we're gonna let ladies go first. Is there a movie soundtrack or a particular album or work that, you know, touches you on that emotional level?
Oh, it's a hard question, but since I was growing up with prog rock, then obviously it hits me a bit when I hear like Dark Side of the Moon and stuff like that. But I'm getting a bit over it because it's been in my life forever. So, well, yeah, the classical music definitely can draw a lot out of out from the heart, yeah. But I would say there was one album by Ulver actually, and not like the black metal Ulver, but the more alternative Ulver that was pretty emotional actually to me. The assassination of Julius Caesar. I hope I said the album name right. That was a bit special, actually. Yeah, but I think it was the circumstances what happened when I was listening to it also. But there's so much music. It's hard to like come to mind now, and I definitely been hit hard in the heart by many Deftones album and Korn The Nothing has really dark songs. I really like when it's dark, when it's melancholic. Yeah. But movies and so on, I don't know. But I'm also a huge fan of Gladiator and the soundtrack from that. Yeah, very emotional. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not too much in that field, so to say. I'm gaming a bit and Final Fantasy 14 online, and from that I definitely got a lot of inspiration musically also. And you know, when music is made to really fit into a story and so on, you cannot just listen to a song from a game. If you don't play it, it's not gonna, you're not gonna feel it anything. Like it's gonna be like, okay, what's that song? But when you're actually in it and the song it's attached to the story that happens when it's played, like then it gets really emotional. So I definitely been emotional with the music in gaming. Yeah.
Reminds me
Mm.
of The Last of Us. That was pretty good score.
Yeah.
And then, I saw the chair. I wanted to mention something. I was like, oh, we're just gonna stick with the music today. I saw the chair in the background. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And then you as well, good sir. What is it about that soundtrack that kind of makes it your favorite for when we love the aggressive?
I think since I've seen the movie so many times, you know, and you can't really listen to it without associating it to the hero's journey through the whole story. And it's a bit cathartic in that sense because you can feel the sadness and melancholy in the music, but you still know that it's the only way to go because it's his sense of duty that it drives him.
Yeah.
And that's very inspirational. But I also like Howard Shore's work with The Lord of the Rings. I think he's made great opera music very accessible in that sense. And I think it's very beautiful and inspiring and probably some of the best music ever written, you know, for film. And yeah, big fan of Hans Zimmer, but he's more pop in that sense if you compare those two. And I mean, look at the Harry Potter movies, you know, the first three ones, which have John Williams, which has also done Star Wars. It's he's a master of making the instruments tell his story. And Jurassic Park, you know, you can really, it's inspiring to it because it's so very different from what we do. But then again, I always, you know, I've learned from them, and many of our string arrangements are heavily inspired by Hans Zimmer, at least.
Also, I love the fact that you said hero's journey. That tells me he's a student of the stories as well, guys. He understands the writing. But I think it's also fascinating to see how much more time they get when you see the different formats for a video game, for a movie, for what we love and do. Like for you guys, what's the max? Usually 10 minutes is pushing it. You guys usually have that 2 to 5 minute time frame. They have these long scenes where they can sit with it and really flesh it out and then change it with the emotion they see. You guys are doing it a little bit more difficult to me because it's theater of the mind at this point, as they say in radio. But we got to hit it. Arctis. How'd you guys come up with the name? The first time I read the name, I was thinking of the rose red cover for Rammstein, where you see the ship and it's frozen. Who came up with the name? And I'm very curious, why is Mika the secretary?
Arctis is actually the continent, you know, which is like on the opposite side of Antarctica, you know, in that sense. You know, close to Finland, you know, and Norway and Sweden, and Greenland and Iceland, you have Arctis on the top, you know, and we
Is
live.
it actually called Arctis in English? Because for us, it's the Arctis name comes more from the Swedish, which is called Arctis.
Yes.
So, but is it Arctis in?
Well, it's the North Pole at least, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will check up later on if what's the correct name, you know, for you know English. But then again, we have the Arctic Circle that crosses Finland, Sweden, and Norway, and parts of Russia as well. And then I think Greenland is inside of it, and then something of Canada as well. We live. If I'm not sure if we live exactly in it or just right outside it, you know, here in Jakobstad, but it felt like, yeah, we're a Finnish band, and there we can bring something new to the table and really, you know, bring what's exotic, you know, from our place to the world. So Arctis felt, yeah, it felt like a good name in that sense.
And it kind of the name came before we even started to think about all the visuals and image we could do with that. And then we had the name, and it really hit off with everything. Yeah, I'm gonna be the Ice Queen, and we're gonna really ride on this. We're coming from the north, and there's gonna be a cold feeling, and yeah, all that we could do with it. But actually, the name came first. Was it maybe the producer even that?
No, we were at a bar.
Oh, okay.
We were at a bar, writing down names, you know, sitting there drinking beer and coming first up with very shitty names, you know, and even obscene names in that sense, because we just had to get it out of our heads. But Arctis were one of these, and we're like looking at it, you know, Arctis, that feels kind of nice in that sense, you know, let's go with it.
Yeah, I love it actually, especially the beer part. I'm an IPA man, so we're gonna talk about that later. But you know, you guys have been very forefront talking about how this album, this band is supposed to be a representation of fighting, keep going. It's supposed to address all those issues that people go through and the struggles. And reading some of these titles off of the album, I'm doing that now. Frozen Swan, Tell Me Why, Remedy. I know Bimbo's a cover. I'll Give You Hell. You know, it's very evident. It's like, hey, we're gonna be touching some spots. You know, Bjorn, you've been very vocal on the Theater of Tragedy. That's the track that's caught your attention the most. Alva, I haven't been able to ascertain which one's been the most emotional for you. Was it a song that was just most difficult to lay down the track for because it was so tolling? Was it more, you know, I can feel the spiritual energy from this and I love performing it? Which song on the album has kind of got your attention of like, this would be my favorite to perform live? This is my favorite.
Yeah, well, I definitely struggled many times in the studio. So if we think emotionally like that, maybe the first song we ever made, that was WWM. That was the first song I ever sang many years ago for Arctis. But I don't feel that much about it now. So the song that hit me emotionally while making and singing it and performing it, of course, Frozen Swan, the ballad, because, you know, it's just a thing for singers that, oh, the ballad comes on. Now I gotta feel so much. But definitely also because it's a huge song, it feels very majestic, and the lyrics is very from the heart as well. Like, I'm not gonna be stuck here in this small town. I'm gonna follow my dreams and don't give a fuck about what people think we should do, making us smaller than we want to be, and then stuff like that. It's definitely about breaking free and following your dreams, and how many years we've fought to be here to get somewhere and do music. It's not easy. So yeah, it definitely hits hard. I think on stage I will feel it a lot too. Yeah, I'm a very emotional being, so
Something about the ballads. The singers love the ballads. I do have to pull back though because WWM was my favorite of the ones I was able to sample so far. So I wanted to know what that combination was, who came up with the idea first, what was laid down first. You know, that's the song where you guys had a harmony that segued right into her vocals, and it was a descending. It was really cool. It was like it was going, and then she came in very gently, and I was just like, oh, this is my style. This is my style of movement. So could you guys explain, just as a fan to me, what it was like creating that one?
That song was the first one we made, and that song also led us into the way, you know, that we have to form Arctis. So yeah, we wrote the song with Jimmy Westerlund, who has been actually based in LA before, and he's got a big, his sound is American in that sense. So we made that song. It was a demo I had made for the previous band, and then we just chopped it up, you know, with him, and then we went through and, you know, reworked the parts and the arrangements, and yeah, it worked really hard through the night. You know, I think me and Mika, we were up 18 or 19 hours straight the first day, and yeah, went to sleep in the morning and then got up a bit later, and then we continued and had an equal long night. But I think we made that song, you know, I think it was like in 2-3 days, you know, in a really, like, you know, 3 graveyard shifts on the road, you know, making that song. Yeah, and a lot of red and white wine and rum, and of course beers, you know, because that was eventually needed.
Alva's just shaking her head like, these guys.
Yeah, because it's like I sometimes think that I don't remember. Was I
But
that
that's
traumatized or something? Because I don't remember actually everything. But also I think because it was the first song we started working with the producer with, I was also kind of like overwhelmed by everything. I was not used to being in the studio. I was not used to working with the producer. So I had a lot to think about, and he was asking a lot from me, and so I think I just kind of just had to go with the flow, with the directions I got, and really trying in my hardest to get something right, or so to say. So
but I remember stuff because I'm the historian.
yeah, you can say all the years we really need to know.
Yes, this was 2017
Okay,
in October.
all right.
Good sir, I am marveling at your ability to remember dates. I can paraphrase the moment, but to remember exactly, what a skill that is. You know, segueing into this, you said something profound to me that I kind of knew, it was in the back of my mind, but I never really tackled. One side of the brain creates when you write music, when you do things, and then the other side is the performance side. And I've always equated performing and writing to be the one. I never thought of them separating. So was there a particular song where you really came to grips with that?
I would say it was very challenging to make this album because it was on a such different level, all things that we did, lyric wise and, you know, musically and arranging, and yeah, it was
Everything was
very
different.
yeah, it was a different style, and we had to come up with a sound, an original sound in that sense. So it was very challenging, but we rose to the occasion because we really believed in it in that sense. So a lot of long nights and long drives through Finland, because it's a long country, even though it's a small one. So yes, we have traveled the railroads quite a bit, and the Finnish state thanks us for that, because that's the only trains that go. So yeah, we've spent a lot of the time on the road, and it's after every session we've done in southern Finland, when we came home, I always felt like the ending of Jurassic Park, when you just stare outside of the window of the helicopter and happy that you survived, you know, in that sense.
Getting home and having no voice anymore because we didn't sleep at all and so on. But yeah, it's tricky with these questions, because I'm actually having like a hard time to remember a lot from the like first half of making the album number one. I would be better at at knowing stuff about what happens after that. Like, yeah. But we're not really like riffing it out, so to say. We're kind of like more actually, yeah, what's it called? Like, Björn,
Are you
help me
are you
out.
thinking about?
Constructing.
Yeah,
Constructing, yeah.
well, you can compare how we write songs more to like perhaps classical musicians or composers, because we don't jam really anything. We mainly write something and then we build it up from there and put in our stuff. But then also we think a lot about you know, like a storyline through the songs also, so we know what to do where in that sense.
Everything is pretty crafted, but with vocals, then I many times just have to like sing through the whole half or whole song and see what happens. So there it's more like, yeah, what happens? What happens now? What's the vibe? What's gonna come up? But then when I laid some ideas, then I go and start constructing and seeing what fits best somewhere. But definitely it starts from feelings, the feeling of the instrumentals around me, because we usually make like the instrumental parts first, so they have like an idea of a chord progression and stuff, and then I do melodies on top of that, which is not always a good thing, but it actually works for us. We're not always maybe gonna do that, but for now it works. And of course, if I think that the melody should go in another direction than what the music does, then they will change it. So it's like nothing is set in stone. We always change stuff for the better when something happens around the corner. There was something else that needed to be changed. Yeah, and so on and so on.
But you guys have really created some masterful music, and the fact that you guys can actually sit down and write, and understand the theory. I'm not saying I'm jealous, but I'm very appreciative of that ability, especially after knowing like I'll give you hell was inspired by the fact that hey, we need a faster song, let's pull through, we gotta push it a bit, and now you're telling me that's how you create. That songs like that are a little bit more on the go. That's a little bit like hey, just what are you feeling at this moment? So this album, so 2018 to 2020, you guys have had it. It's been waiting and pressure cooking, and you've had it since the pandemic. You even created music from the second album, and dare I say, you got some in the works for a third album. So you guys are pretty stacked as far as when it was time to go and shop for these different record labels, to shop and sell yourselves. You guys had the packages, you had the music. I kind of really want to focus on that time frame before things opened up, before you were finding and looking around. What was the general feeling when it was like we have to wait? Was it hopeless? Because here you spent all this time creating something pretty magnificent, and now here's another bump in the road where it's like, well, damn, that just got ripped away from us again. What were the feelings? What was the consensus before you came to the idea of like, we're just going to hold out, wait a little longer, wait a little longer, wait a little longer?
Well, it was a very frustrating time in that sense, but as I said about the Finnish people, were very stubborn in that sense. So yeah, we were not happy and not feeling well, but we were still creating music and you know, living on very minimal hope and dreams in that sense, but we're still, you know, doing it because it's our absolute dream to do. So yeah, I would say that it was absolutely not funny and very stressful, and at times even depressing in that sense, because you know, you knew you had something really nice on your hands, but you couldn't really use it. So, but I mean, we waited and waited and waited, and there is a term in leadership books called heroic waiting, and I picture it for myself that we use the heroic waiting button a lot, you know, cueing gladiator music and sitting down and waiting.
Yeah, I mean, and we we had the time to go through all the mental health issues you can have when you lose your purpose in life, and when you have a purpose in life, but it kind of is like, is it gonna happen? So everyone was crashing a bit in one issue from the other, and we tried them all kind of. So it was definitely a very tough time. And one thing also was like, we grew so much in our songwriting, and the fear was there that, oh my god, is this album gonna become old? Is it gonna feel like this is not us anymore when it eventually comes out? I was maybe mostly frustrated. From all the band members, I was the most frustrated because I wanted already to like go into to already be releasing the music that we were making after this album. Like, it was like, how many years are we gonna wait? This is gonna become old. It's not us anymore. That was a huge fear. But eventually, not 1 year too late, we were able to now release it. And yeah, I don't have that fear anymore, because the album started to feel really good again when we actually were back in our purpose. And now we're just gonna move very fast and forward, and yeah, so we can start showing all the things we've been working for for a few years already.
I'm so grateful that you guys are getting that vindication for that waiting, for that suffering. Um, I'm gonna cut this portion out probably, but there's been times where I've had it in my career where it's like the mob is yelling at me, you need to be doing this, you're great, you can do this, you're the best here, and then the higher ups are like, no, stop bothering us, this and that, and you're caught in this headspace of like, well, I know this is what I'm the best at, this is what I'm good at, this is what I should be doing, and it's just not happening. When's that breaking point? Now, especially back to when you guys finally, everything opened up, your management got you in touch with Nuclear Blast, and you guys already had the packages ready, you guys had everything. They basically just said, hey, here you go, we got you ready to rock and roll. You know, and now you're starting your first show. The band's first show is going to be with Apocalyptica. You know, have you guys been able to have any communication between your management and their management? Have you been able to do any back and forth with the band to see what the touring is going to be like? What are you most excited, because they too are really heavy hitters in your area in Finland and world renowned, so it's got to be a great little chip on your shoulder. And plus you'll also be out with the Raven Age for Steve Harris's son's band as well, so you got two heavy hitters. You're about to have a little fun. I know there's that competition aspect, you can't get away from it.
Well, I think there's been communication between our management and Apocalyptica's management in order to settle this tour in that sense. But we will not actually perform with Raven Age, because they're on the first half of the tour and we are on the second. Yeah. So they are quite soon finishing up, I think, or if they have not already. I think they have a little break now, and then we start all over from the 11th November, and then we do gigs until the last of November in that sense. But yeah, it feels really great to play with Apocalyptica, because they're one of the bands that emerged when I started to listen to metal in that sense. So it feels nice to be part of this, you know, because they're a Finnish legacy band in that sense. You know, if you ask me, I think they are one of the classics.
But yeah, we have not been communicating with the band at all, with Apocalyptica. So it's gonna be like the first chat and the first meet and everything when we see them in Luxembourg. So that's definitely gonna be super interesting. It's like, well, hello, we're here. Wow, nice to meet you. And wow, let's go on stage. Wow, yeah, everything. And such an honor also. Like, they took a chance on us, really. Like, they had to, of course, approve that we're gonna be the warm-up, and we were brand new, and not every big band would just take a brand new band. So it feels really nice. It felt like they were doing a nice thing, because they could have taken someone else also, but maybe they just believed in us and wanted to give us a shot in the spotlight, and I don't know, but it feels great.
You guys are in the middle of finishing up the logistics. Bjorn, I know you and the guys have been practicing, trying to get it right. And I also know that you've been looking for vans, trying to get the trailer, making sure everything can go pretty easily. You guys are probably going to be sleeping on top of each other. But, you know, I looked at some of the tour dates and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to lie. If I was going to Paris, if I was going to Bulgaria, there's a couple of spots in Italia. I'm like, you know what? This is a pretty solid, like, even if you don't get to go out into the city, just to where you're gonna be at for some of these venues is it's good enough. It's like, wow, I was really here. You know, is there any particular locations you're looking forward to performing at?
All of it, I think, in that sense, because it's always nice to see the different cultures and different countries, you know, in Europe, because we are an interesting mix, a big soup, if you will. So I think it's gonna be nice to see everything. But you know, I've never actually been to France. I've never been to Spain, Portugal. I've been almost nowhere because I've just been busy writing music and buying music gear. So I haven't been anywhere. I've been in Sweden, Greece, and the Åland Islands. I think that's it. Oh, of course, I've been in Poland because I was on tour in Poland. You know,
Yeah, that's
Latvia,
crazy tour.
Estonia. Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see these different countries, you know, and different cultures and people on the road. But yeah, Europe is the old country, you know, in that sense. So it's nice to see very old houses and, you know, sense the history there. So yeah, I'm gonna be excited to see all of it actually.
I don't know much about the venues, but I've understood that the one in Paris is pretty like historical, so to say.
Yeah,
Like it's a big and well-known venue and important place. So, and when we checked out the venues, we also saw like what big bands have big names have performed there. So that feeling of being on the same stage as some of our own heroes have been on before, that's definitely super cool. And yeah,
very humbling, very humbling.
yeah. But I've been in France 5 times, so I definitely looking forward to be back there and going to places I haven't been, because I haven't been to Paris. So I'm gonna check that off the list, and that's gonna be really awesome. And I look forward to Spain, because that's gonna be the most warm place we're gonna be playing in. So I hope I get a little bit of warmth. Hope I can get outside the bus and the venue and have a little bit of time in the hopefully sun also. We actually checked that it's gonna be quite rainy the whole tour. If it's correct, we don't know, and it might change. But yeah, but then also I look forward to playing in Brussels, because my mom and dad and brother is gonna come all the way from Finland to come and see us in Brussels. Not the perfect show though. It's the second show, and we're probably gonna be like a bit dizzy from changing like our Björn, dygn.
Yeah, well, we probably will have some issues when we shift, you know, like our sleeping times, because
Yeah.
we are gonna drive in the night after Apocalyptica's night liner. They're called that because they roll in the night. So yeah, we're gonna sleep probably from early morning until 1 p.m., 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So yes, we're gonna be a bit probably sluggish, but then again, there are caffeine drinks, you know, so we're gonna
It
be
doesn't
up
help
and
the
kicking.
vocal cords, Björn.
You're gonna
But
you're
yeah,
gonna be
like
fine.
yeah, of course. The adrenaline is gonna save me. But the first shows will probably be a bit harder to adjust to all these new things and stuff. So well, they can come in and support us on the tough second gig. So yeah, it's gonna be good.
You guys said you felt stuck in life, and this is going to be the freedom, performing, doing your purpose. I wanted to know, and this is a very personal question for you both, who has been the most supportive on this journey?
I would definitely
Wow.
say that the band themselves we've done it
Yeah.
ourselves, motivated us. But my girlfriend has been very supportive to me, because it's a hard life, and it's not everyone understands why an artist does what they do, because it's hard to understand if you don't understand, in that sense. And I think it's impossible to adapt to it if it's not stated in the beginning of your relationship, so to say. But yeah, inside the band, everyone falls, time to time, but there are someone who always picks up the torch, as I said earlier in the interview. So we've been very great at motivating each other, and staying true on course, in that sense.
Yeah, the biggest support would be inside the band, because it's not been easy for friends or people around us to understand why we are so crazy to still be going strong and doing this, and why haven't you been giving up, and okay, so what's happening now? It's been a lot of questions throughout the years, that why are you still, is it gonna go anywhere? So definitely inside the band has been our biggest support. We kind of only had each other, but then again, my mom and dad are both artists, creative people, like painter and musicians, so they always understood that there's no way, if you can't be expressive and create, there's no way for a soul like mine and theirs and ours to survive in this world if we can't do anything like we are doing. So they always understood and been very supportive, kind of the whole band also, not only just me, and helping out a lot. And then because I have a son also, he's not been like supportive, but it's always been the extra motivator to show him that I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna do it because I want to do it, and it's gonna happen through all the struggles, through all the hard times, together with him also. Everything that's been hard in his and my life, it's gonna work out. Things are gonna work out, and I want him to follow his own dreams also when he gets older, and maybe struggle the whole way like I do. And I want to show that it's possible. And yeah, but he's also like very happy about things. He always go to like every post on YouTube Shorts, and always happy calling me and saying, "Hey, I saw you again. I saw you again." So definitely he is a big motivator for me. It's so special when it's your own flesh and blood that cares and say something, like those small comments that, "Hey, I saw you, mom." That's just, oh yes, you saw me. So yeah.
Yeah, and I must say that our management was very patient, with us the whole time with the pandemic and everything, and stayed with us. So I'm really thankful for their support.
I always end these with the most important question. What's the best piece of advice someone has given you?
Yeah, I got one from Euge Valovirta, who was he was like the boss at Spine Farm, but he's playing guitar nowadays in a band called Syra. And he said that if you want to do music, if you want to make money, don't do music, because it's not the right place to do it, because there's almost no money in music. But if you can't think of doing anything else except music, then you're the right person to do it, because then it's just written for you to do it. And that's how I feel with us, that it's something we just can't leave, and it's something we must do. So I would say if that's how it feels for you, then music is right for you. And that's the best advice I've ever heard, I think, personally.
Yeah, like don't make music for the money, but the money comes as the bonus later if you really work hard. And definitely, of course, we want to make a living from music, of course. Why wouldn't you want to work with your passion? So yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta say it right and I gotta say it again. Arctis. debut album out now. And guys, I'm telling you, they're going to rock the house when they go out on tour with Apocalyptica, November 11th, ladies and gentlemen. If you're in Spain, Italia, oh, I should have said España. I don't know why I said Italian and España, but regardless, guys, they're going to be touring all over Europe and sharing their music. And I really, really want to point it out. You might want to listen to WWM before you do anything else. And of course, their latest single, I'll Give You Hell, is out there. That was Bjorn, their guitarist, and Mademoiselle Alva, their lead singer. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. It was a really, really nice interview and discussion. I liked it a lot. Yeah, it was fun. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. And everybody else, you know what I'm going to say. Be smart, be mindful, rock on. Don't forget to go to their Instagram and their Facebook. And they got Twitter and YouTube. Go there too. And as always, Ninja out.
Hi guys, this is the Captain from Arctis. You're listening to John the Ninja Show. And we are here promoting our new album. It's going to drop 1st of November, and we're heading out on tour with Apocalyptica. Go ahead and check us out on Instagram, and go ahead and tell us what you like in our videos. Let us know in the comments. Alva is reading them always.
Woo, baby, you listen to John the Ninja. All your ears are about to go on a vacation. John the Ninja's got what you need.